The Seattle Seahawks, the goal line suicide. The 2014 Seahawks were assassins. The Legion of Boom had terrorized the entire league, and Marshawn Lynch, a locomotive in cleats, stood 1 yard from back-to-back Super Bowl championships. 26 seconds on the clock, second down. The world knew the play. Every analyst, every defender, every fan on the planet screamed the same thing: give the ball to beast mode. Instead, Pete Carroll's staff called a quick slant into the most congested space on the football field. Malcolm Butler, an undrafted rookie who had studied that exact route in film sessions, exploded into the passing lane and intercepted it before Wilson could blink. The Seahawks didn't just lose the Super Bowl. They self-destructed at the 1 yard line and handed the Patriots a championship on a silver platter. The Legion of Boom never trusted the offense again. The dynasty died by its own hand, 36 inches from immortality. The most catastrophic play call in NFL history remains an open wound to this day: the Atlanta Falcons. The 28-3 execution. No lead in Super Bowl history was safer. No collapse in sports history was more savage. The 2016 Falcons didn't just lead the Patriots, they humiliated them. Matt Ryan was shredding every coverage. Julio Jones was operating on a different plane of existence. By the third quarter of Super Bowl 51, the scoreboard read 28-3, and the entire football world had already begun writing New England's obituary. Then, like a virus activating in a host body, the Falcons began destroying themselves. Their coaching staff, drunk on arrogance, refused to run the ball and suffocate the clock. They kept throwing. They kept bleeding. Tom Brady, sensing the scent of a wounded opponent, transformed into something cold and surgical. Even Julio Jones's miraculous one-handed sideline grab, a play that should have sealed New England's fate, was strangled by a holding penalty. The Patriots forced overtime. The Falcons' exhausted defense offered zero resistance. James White crossed the goal line, and 28-3 became the most haunting number in football history. A brand of shame burned permanently into the soul of every Atlanta fan. The Buffalo Bills, 4 funerals and a franchise. Scott Norwood didn't just miss a field goal in Super Bowl 25. He pulled the first thread from a sweater that would unravel over 4 consecutive years of psychological devastation. The Bills' K-gun offense was the most revolutionary attack in football. Jim Kelly was commanding. Thurman Thomas was unstoppable. A 47-yard field goal in the final seconds against the Giants was all that stood between Buffalo and eternal glory. The snap was clean. The hold was perfect. The kick sailed and peeled right at the last possible moment. Wide right, the Giants celebrated. Buffalo collapsed. But here is where the story turns from tragedy into something almost incomprehensible. The Bills returned to the Super Bowl the following year, then the year after that, then again. 4 consecutive Super Bowl appearances, 4 consecutive losses. No franchise in professional sports history has ever walked into that fire 4 straight times and been burned 4 straight times. Norwood's kick wasn't just a miss. It was the opening wound in a 4-year massacre of the human spirit. The New England Patriots, the 18-1 funeral. The 2007 Patriots were not a football team. They were an extinction-level event. They went 16-0 during the regular season, rewriting the record books with a ferocity that bordered on cruelty. Brady was a machine. Randy Moss was untouchable. They entered Super Bowl 42 against the Giants as the greatest team assembled in NFL history, 1 game away from a perfect 19-0 season and a legacy that would never be challenged. Leading 14-10 with under 2 minutes remaining, New England needed one stop. Eli Manning was nearly decapitated by the pass rush, but he spun free, stumbled backward, and launched a blind, desperate prayer down the middle of the field. David Tyree leapt, and in a moment that defied every known law of physics, pinned the football against his own helmet with one hand while a Patriots defender yanked at his body. The play stood. Plaxico Burress caught the winner moments later. The perfect season was gone. The greatest team ever assembled finished 18-1, and that single hyphen between the numbers remains the most devastating punctuation mark in sports history. The Minnesota Vikings, the perfection paradox. The 1998 Vikings weren't playing football, they were conducting an execution every Sunday. Randall Cunningham was reborn. Randy Moss was a supernatural force terrorizing every secondary in the NFC. They set the all-time scoring record, went 15-1, and carried the weight of inevitability into the NFC Championship. The Super Bowl wasn't a destination. It was a formality. Gary Anderson was the most reliable weapon in the sport. He had gone an entire season without missing a single kick, regular season and playoffs combined. Literal perfection. With 2 minutes left and Minnesota leading by 7, Anderson lined up for a 38-yard chip shot. One kick, 1 yard less than chip shot distance. The kind of kick he'd made hundreds of times. The kick that would send the greatest offense in NFL history to Miami. The ball sailed wide left. The stadium did not make a sound. The Falcons marched down and tied it, won in overtime. The most statistically dominant regular season team in NFC history never reached the Super Bowl. Perfection, annihilated by a few inches of cold Minnesota air. The Las Vegas Raiders, the Tuck Rule robbery. Charles Woodson obliterated Tom Brady in a snow-covered Foxborough Stadium and sent the football spinning into the darkness. The Raiders recovered. The game was over. New England was going home. A young backup quarterback's first playoff run was finished, and the Oakland Raiders were marching toward the Super Bowl. Then the officials huddled. They invoked the Tuck Rule, a technicality buried so deep in the rule book that most people in that stadium had never heard of it. Brady's arm, they ruled, was still in a forward passing motion even as he was clearly pulling the ball back. Incomplete pass, not a fumble. The Raiders' recovery was erased like it never happened. New England tied it, won in overtime, and launched the most dominant dynasty in modern sports history. The Raiders spiraled into 2 decades of irrelevance. For Raider Nation, the Tuck Rule wasn't a referee's call. It was a government-sanctioned heist that changed the course of NFL history and built an empire on their grave. The Cleveland Browns, the fumble. A year after John Elway's legendary drive ripped the heart from Cleveland, the Browns were given one more shot at redemption in the 1987 AFC Championship. Bernie Kosar had driven them to Denver's 8-yard line in the final minute, down just 7 points. Ernest Biner, who had already amassed 187 yards of total offense, took the handoff and barreled toward the goal line. He was inches away. The stadium was convulsing. Jeremiah Castile reached in with surgical precision and stripped the football clean. Biner crossed the goal line with empty hands. The ball bounced harmlessly behind him into Denver's possession. Biner collapsed on the turf, a man destroyed in public. The play became known simply as the fumble, 2 words that carry the weight of an entire city's suffering. The wound ran so deep that the franchise eventually abandoned Cleveland altogether, leaving behind a literal graveyard of broken hearts and a fan base that had to wait years just to have a team again. The New Orleans Saints, the no-call heist. Drew Brees was 40 years old and chasing his final ring. The Saints had the loudest building in football and a surgical offense that had dismantled the NFC all season. in the 2018 NFC Championship with the game tied late in the fourth quarter. Breeze fired a pass to Tommy Lee Lewis on the sideline, and before the ball even arrived, Rams cornerback nickel Roby Coleman launched himself helmet first into Lewis's skull in the most blatant pass interference call in the history of the sport. Every flag in every referee's pocket stayed exactly where it was. The officials saw it. The entire planet saw it. The league admitted it afterward. But the Saints were forced to settle for a field goal. The Rams tied it, and New Orleans was eliminated in overtime. The NFL changed the rules the following year, a direct acknowledgement that something unconscionable had occurred. But Breeze never got another shot. His career ended without that second ring, stolen in broad daylight in front of 100 million witnesses. The NOLA no call remains the most clearly documented championship theft in professional sports. The Indianapolis Colts. The ambush. Peyton Manning's 2009 Colts were a masterpiece. They went 14-0 before resting starters, and entered Super Bowl 44 as the superior team against the Saints. Manning had the game exactly where he wanted it at halftime, controlled, methodical, precise. Then Sean Payton called an onside kick to open the second half. It was an act of pure aggression that violated every conventional wisdom in the sport. The Saints recovered. The game cracked open like a fault line. Manning was suddenly forced into desperation, the one environment he hated most. With the title slipping away in the fourth quarter, he targeted Reggie Wayne on a slant they had run 1,000 times. Saints cornerback Tracy Porter had seen it on the film. He stepped in front of the pass and sprinted 74 yards the other way. Pick six. The game was finished. Manning's perfect season ended in someone else's celebration, ambushed by a coach willing to gamble everything at the worst possible moment. The Tennessee Titans, the yard of despair, everything the 1999 Titans accomplished, the Music City Miracle, the comeback. Against the Steelers, Steve McNair, playing through injuries that would have hospitalized lesser men, came down to 6 seconds and 1 yard in Super Bowl 34, down 23-16. McNair drove the Titans from deep in their own territory to the Rams' 10-yard line with time for one final play. He fired a slant to Kevin Dyson. Dyson caught it, spun, and dove toward the goal line with everything he had. Mike Jones wrapped his arms around Dyson's legs and held on with a grip forged from desperation. Dyson stretched his arm forward. The ball was centimeters from the white paint when the clock struck 0. The image, Dyson's arm extended, reaching for a championship that would always remain just out of reach, is the single most iconic image of heartbreak in Super Bowl history. 1 yard, that's all that separated the Titans from immortality. The Detroit Lions. The face mask fluke Dan Campbell had built something miraculous in Detroit. A team of self-described kneecap biters who played with a ferocity the franchise hadn't seen in decades. Leading the 49ers 24-7 at halftime of the 2023 NFC Championship, the Lions were minutes from the first Super Bowl appearance in franchise history. The Motor City was shaking. Then the football gods revealed their cruelty. A deep Purdy pass sailed toward Lions cornerback Kendall Vildorte. An easy interception. A game-sealing play. The ball struck Vildor directly in the face mask, ricocheted skyward like a pinball, and landed perfectly in Brandon Ayuk's arms for a 51-yard gain. The stadium exhaled. A Jahmyr Gibbs fumble moments later converted a commanding lead into a tied game. 17 points surrendered in 12 minutes. The Lions lost. A city that had finally allowed itself to believe was reminded with maximum brutality that in Detroit, the football gods don't just let you lose, they humiliate you on the way down. The Cincinnati Bengals, the dropped execution, one catch. That is all that stood between the 1988 Cincinnati Bengals and their first Super Bowl championship. Leading San Francisco 13-6 in the fourth quarter of Super Bowl 23, they had Joe Montana, the greatest quarterback alive, on the ropes. Montana dropped back and threw directly into the chest of cornerback Lewis Billups in the end zone. A gift. A game-ending interception delivered to Billups' hands by Montana himself. The ball hit his palms and fell to the turf. The stadium exhaled. On the very next play, Montana threw a touchdown to claw back. Then, with 34 seconds remaining, he orchestrated a 92-yard death march ending with John Taylor in the end zone. The Bengals were not beaten by a better team. They were executed by their own failure to close their fingers. It took Cincinnati 33 years and a generation of suffering before they reached another Super Bowl. The Washington Commanders, the RG3 execution Robert Griffin III, wasn't just a quarterback, he was resurrection. He won Rookie of the Year and ignited an entire broken fan base with the electricity of a man who seemed genuinely different. In his first playoff game against Seattle, his knee was already damaged, a ticking time bomb that everyone in the building could see except the coaching staff that refused to remove him. In the fourth quarter, a low snap forced Griffin to bend awkwardly. His already compromised knee simply gave out. Buckling in a direction knees are not designed to travel on national television in real time. He lay on the grass while the broadcast showed the replay over and over. Griffin never returned to that level. The franchise that had finally found its savior watched him break apart on the field because winning one playoff game mattered more than protecting a generational talent. Washington has been searching for that feeling ever since. The Kansas City Chiefs, the 28-point collapse. Andy Reid had performed a miracle, transforming a 2-14 franchise into a playoff juggernaut in a single season. Leading Andrew Luck's Colts 38-2 in the third quarter, Kansas City was murdering Indianapolis on national television. Then injuries gutted their backfield. Then a Colts fumble at the goal line bounced directly into Andrew Luck's hands for a touchdown, a play so improbable it felt scripted. A 64-yard bomb to T.Y. Hilton finished the slaughter. The Chiefs surrendered 28 points and became victims of the second-largest collapse in playoff history. The Alex Smith era was buried in that moment, and Kansas City fans spent years waiting for a quarterback who could finally finish what others could not. Football is not a sport. It is a reckoning. These 32 moments are the wounds that never close, the permanent graveyard of 1,000 championship dreams built over lifetimes and destroyed in seconds. Which crime against your team still wakes you at 3 a.m.? Drop it below. Stay haunted.